I'm pleased this morning to be joined by real estate developer Michael Pollack. Michael, how are you?
Tom, I'm doing great, thank you. It's great to be on this show you're doing, and it's just great to see all the things that you're doing.
Now, Michael, I've interviewed a number of people who hate being on camera. You are a pro on camera. So we're going to learn a thing or two from you because you have actually become one with your brand. And so Michael Pollack is on buildings all over the valley, all over in California and in Nevada. And we want to take a huge step back and go back to when you were 18 and you did your first real estate deal. Tell us about how that went down.
Well, I have to admit, I actually started way before 18. I was on job sites with my dad when I was 6, 7 years old. And so by the time I was probably 13 or 14, I already had a painting company and I already had a landscape company. And so I actually started way before 18. But I can remember when I was first out of high school and getting started, I literally graduated high school in the afternoon and I went to work that night. So there wasn't a lot of time for a lot of partying. There was only time to collect that diploma and get ready and go to work.
Yeah. So I've heard this story, but I'd like to go into more detail about it. You got some friends of yours to invest and you developed your first house. How in the world did you convince them when you were only 18 to see the vision and believe in you?
You know, I'll tell you, what happened was I didn't have the $5,000 that it took to buy a lot. Now, mind you, this is in San Jose, California, where it later became Silicon Valley, but this was in the year 1973. And so I talked 5 of my friends into each lending me $1,000 with the promise that I would double their money and give them back $10,000. Well, the only problem was they were convinced, but they didn't have any money either. So the only thing I could do at that point was they went actually to their parents, and their parents put up the $1,000 each.
You're kidding.
And so I ended up, I borrowed the $5,000, and in 6 months I indeed gave them back $10,000. And I learned early on the true value of liquidity and cash money. And after that one, I can honestly say, I dealt with conventional lenders, banks, life insurance companies, and lenders like that. It was no more of those, you get to have 100% of the interest. That didn't happen except for once.
You started in San Jose, you ended up in Arizona. Why Arizona?
You know, I came to Arizona back in 1990, and I came here because this, in my opinion, and I still feel this way, by the way, this is the land of opportunity. There are so many opportunities in this great state of Arizona that it is amazing to me that even more people are not flocking to Arizona. We have everything that you could possibly want to have, and opportunity, opportunity, opportunity.
Now, your buildings, many of them have your name on them. And there's a phone number, and the phone number, when they call it, actually leads to you. And we're not talking about a small scale. I mean, you have a lot of buildings around the West and here in Arizona. A number of people don't want to be out in front, but you're willing to put your name on your product. What's your strategy when it comes to branding?
You know, I truly believe when I get done finishing a project, redeveloping a project, and that's what I really specialize in, is redevelopment. I used to do a lot of development from the ground up, but my real passion is taking something that I know could be better and working on it and making it better. And when I get done with it, I'm proud of that product, or I'm not going to do it, or I'm proud of that project, I should say, or I'm not going to be involved in it. And so I have no hesitation whatsoever about putting my name on that building. And if somebody wants to send me an email or they want to call me up and tell me that they don't like it, which, by the way, I can honestly say I get very few of those, but people will want to send emails like the project that I'm sure you'll want to talk about in Gilbert that we are just finishing up. where, I take a lot of pride in that project, take a lot of pride in all of them. And you know what one of the biggest problems is? In our society, unfortunately, the craftsmanship of the old days has pretty much started to die out. And I remember back in the 70s, a craftsman would look back at the work he did or she did and say, hey, that's a project that I'm proud of, I worked on it, and take a look back. I've seen so many people over the years, especially over more recent years, they'll get in their truck, they'll have left the project, and the truth is they don't even look back. Well, I look back all the time, and I try to learn from every single project what I want to do on the next one to make it even better. And that's after 43 years of doing this.
Now, we had a chance to tour the project in Gilbert at the corner of Gilbert and Ray, and you and I have talked about this project over the course of the last year, and it's been fascinating to watch the transformation. How did you get the vision for this, and what's your end goal here? What are you trying to accomplish?
The project in Gilbert and Ray over in the town of Gilbert is probably the most unique that I've ever done. It's one of the smallest projects I've ever done, but it was situated on a very prominent corner, and it was in what I would consider to be deplorable condition. And I always had in the back of my mind this one project that I wanted to do, and I got the vision back when I was about 10 years old. So, about 20 years or so ago, I got this idea of a project that I wanted to do, and I was walking down Main Street in Disneyland, and I realized that the upstairs in a lot of those suites didn't look like they were really real, but they looked incredible. And I thought, wow, wouldn't it be great to build a project someday? Now remember, this is a 10-year-old thinking this. Wouldn't it be great to build a project that is like a Disneyland in that each storefront has a different face to it? And it's been done in malls, of course. People have done that type of construction, and you see it every once in a while in very, very high-end, very expensive neighborhoods where people will go to the expense and the time. But where you don't normally see it is in the renovation redevelopment, because it is, I promise you, I've just finished it, and it is very costly to do a project like the one I just finished at Gilbert and Ray.
So, in talking to people that have had success, some people have a number, some people have a level, what they're trying to accomplish, and then they're done. You've hit so many milestones, and you continue to develop and to grow your business. What drives you?
For me, I think it's the thrill of doing it over again, or doing something next time that I haven't done yet, or doing it better. And although we've been fortunate, we've won a lot of awards for the work that we do, and for that I am so humbled and so grateful. But it's really about challenging myself. And coming off of the Gilbert and Ray project, to be honest, I don't know what I'm going to do to top that one. I don't know what the encore is going to be, because that one took a long time. You figure, for me, it was a 50-year journey from the time I first thought it up in my head and the time I actually had the opportunity to do it. And you have to remember, for me, I've been involved in over 12 million square feet of real estate projects in my career. So that's a lot of footage behind me before I finally got to this fantasy project that I wanted to do that actually became a reality.
Now, your involvement puts you in a unique position where you can see a lot of things that other people can't. And we have somebody watching this video that's considering being an entrepreneur, considering following in your footsteps. Let's pretend to look in a crystal ball for a minute. What are the next 10 years going to be like, and where are the opportunities going to be?
Well, first of all, I can say that I think that the next 10 years are all about Arizona. I think Arizona's got so much potential. We have so much untapped potential here that I think it's just mind-boggling. And so I think we're going to see a tremendous amount of growth, and we have the room to do it. I think that we're going to see new businesses that will continue to come to Arizona. I think that the political climate, of course, is critical. And I think when we see leadership like yourself, you know, in positions where they're thinking outside the box and they're trying to truly be creative, and when you've got everybody working toward one common goal, which is to make our state the greatest state, then it'll come true. But you know, it's like anything. I get asked all the time, what is an average work day for you? Or what is an average work week for you? You know, an average work day for me, I have no idea what it is. Sometimes it's get up in the morning at 7:30 and get done the next morning at about 3:30, maybe 4 o'clock. I don't really watch a clock. And so I just think that there's so much potential and so much excitement that it's just magical. And I think that's what we're going to continue to see, providing there's no unexpected bad turns in the road.
Oh, we have somebody watching this video that's thinking about getting started as an entrepreneur. What's your advice to that person? How do they get themselves? 95% of the fuel for the shuttle is used just to get off the ground. And we have somebody that's at that point of just getting off the ground. With your experience and the things that you've seen, what can you say to that person?
Well, the first thing I would say to anybody that is thinking about getting started in a business is you must have honesty, integrity. You should be passionate about what you're doing, but most importantly, follow up. You have got to be in a position where if you've got an account or accounts, you can't just do the job and then pretend like that's the end of your role. I don't care if you're going into the business that's a yogurt shop or a cabinet shop. I don't care if you're going into a business that is a landscaper. I don't care what the business is. If you take the attitude that you're just going to do the job and move on, then you will have a very difficult time being truly successful. It's the person who puts in that extra mile, so to speak, or who puts in, just like a star athlete, the ones that train the hardest are the ones that usually progress the most. And it's the same thing when you're talking about business. And I can give you an example. Right now, I just had one the other day, somebody that was doing a job for me, and they were literally supposed to finish this job in 4 weeks, and here we are now 3 months later, and the job is still not complete. Now, you think about it. Am I going to use that person again, or am I going to refer that person to anybody else? Well, the answer is obvious. No, I'm not. So if that person would have done what they said, and if that person would have had the follow-up, could that person have ended up getting, or that company have ended up getting, a tremendous amount of more work both from me and been able to use me for referrals? Yes, but the follow-up wasn't there. The integrity, it wasn't there. You have to have it. If you go into business thinking that you can do anything other than that, you are making a mistake. You must be willing to work hard. You must be honest with people, and you must have integrity. Those are key ingredients to being successful. And you also should have a passion about what you're doing.
Now, there's a term used in business called getting the right people on the bus. For some businesses, this is employees. Now, you have a number of employees that work for you, but you also have a number of contractors that work for you. So let's extend it out, not only to employees, but to people who get your business in contracting and subcontracting. What is the secret to finding talent and to retaining talent?
Well, first of all, when it comes to contractors, I look for ones that have a track record, but every once in a while, and depending on who they are and what their experience level is, we will take a startup company and we will give them work. We're not going to give them a big deposit. So I can tell people that's one of the things that if you're new in business, don't be looking for a giant deposit from people who've been in business for a long time and have proven track records of honesty, integrity, so on and so forth, because they're going to look and say, you know, you're the one that doesn't have the track record, not me. So that's one of the biggest things, I think, for contractors, for example. We are never in a position where we will give big deposits to contractors. And when we have in the past, we found that it's been not the brightest move in the world.
Mm-hmm. Sales, marketing, advertising. What's your philosophy and how have you been successful in these areas?
Well, when you talk sales, marketing, advertising, you've got to talk about public relations. And the public relations are one of the most important things. And that goes back to what we talked about earlier, and that's your brand. And your brand really is a direct reflection of what your beliefs are. And in my case, I truly believe that we should do the best we can. And so I think that you have to make sure you go that extra yard or that extra mile to make sure that the customer is pleased with the work you've done, and most important, the follow-up service. If you're a company and you did some work and there's a problem with it, if you want to retain that customer, the best way to do it is call up, whether it be a week later, a day later, 2 weeks later, and say, how's everything with the whatever it is that we did for you? And if that person says, well, it's great, I love it, then the best thing to do is say, would you mind if I used you as a referral? And most of the time, as long as, you know, like for example with us, if somebody wanted to use me for referral 25 times a day, I wouldn't get anything else done if I had to keep giving them you know, kudos to everybody that called. But if it was somebody that they were trying to land an account and it was really important to them, and I truly believed that they were an honorable company, then would I have any reservation whatsoever about giving a referral? No, I'd go out of my way to give a referral for somebody that earned my referral. That's the most important thing. With me, I won't refer and I won't give a recommendation to somebody unless I truly believe they've earned that.
Do you consider yourself a competitive person?
I think that anybody who's been successful in real estate or in development or in any business for that matter has got to have somewhat of a level of competitiveness. Otherwise, they would give up every time. So I think you have to have some level of competitive nature to you. Yeah.
How does competition factor into your industry today?
Well, competition in our industry is a little bit different than most, because you have to remember we're playing with real estate, and most of the deals that we do are fairly significant. It's not like selling. It's not like selling a $2 item. We're selling somebody a lease that, or we're leasing to someone, I should say, not selling them, but we're leasing to someone that might be making a commitment for 5 years, 7 years, 10 years. And first of all, for me, I've got to believe both in my product, but I have to also at least believe in their product to a degree. I can't tell you, unfortunately, how many times I've been put in a position where somebody will tell me it's a startup, and they'll tell me about what their idea is, and I'll look at them and I'll ask them, okay, are you really ready for this? And the best advice I can give people when it comes to, are you really ready for this? Do you have the reserves, the cash, the liquidity, the money, call it whatever you want? Do you have it in reserve? And if you do and you're ready, then it's time to start talking about a location. And you know, I've had some that the concepts were just not there, or the cash position, the liquidity position just wasn't there. And it doesn't do me any good to put somebody in one of my properties or one of my shopping centers who's just going to end up in trouble in 3 or 6 months. So I really believe that you have to have the deep pocket. It doesn't need to be so deep that you know, that you don't have to work anymore, and that's why you're doing it. So I don't want to confuse people with that, but you've got to at least have adequate reserves so that when you go to rent your first space, whether it be retail, whether it be industrial, you know, you've got to have enough money behind you to carry you while you're waiting for your business to take off. I see very few businesses It's not that it doesn't happen once in a while, because it does, but I see very few businesses that just open the doors and bam, magically, they are an overnight success. And yet I have people that I've seen in small restaurants that they'll open them up, and first they'll come to me and say, you know, I've got this great concept, this great idea, and then I'll say, okay, I'm listening to everything you're saying, but after you pay the deposit for the space, and after you pay for the food, and after you pay for some minimal advertising, and after you get your company set up, are you going to have enough money to be able to carry this business, pay your payroll, pay your insurances, pay your advertising, pay your electric bill, pay the things that you need to pay while you're waiting for this thing to truly take off? And if the answer is yes, we've been thinking about it for years, this is our dream, and this is what we want to do, and we do have adequate reserves to do it, then nothing makes me personally happier than to be able to deal with those people, to be able to find them their new location, and to be able to watch them open, and in many cases, many cases, watch them be successful. Nothing pleases me more than to see my tenants successful.
Yeah. Let's talk about lawyers. So we live in a very litigious world. And I know there's a number of people that are concerned when starting a business about how the law is going to apply to them. What's your philosophy when it comes to lawyers?
You know, a lot of my really good friends are lawyers. So for the risk of losing friends, I have to be a little bit careful. But I will tell you this, there are, like in everything, there are a lot of incredible people that are lawyers. There are a lot of very talented people. And then there are some people that I'm not sure they should be doing any job. So just like in anything, you're going to get good and bad. I think lawyers are important in the business community, and the reason I think they're important is the good ones that are deal makers, are out there to put the people together. They're out there to put the business companies together, and they're out there to make deals. I call them deal makers. And then you've got some lawyers that I call, you might as well pay them by the pound, because that means, in essence, they're just going to shove so many words into a document that usually it's not going to get signed anyhow, especially the way they've written it, and they honestly believe they're going to get paid by the pound. Those are not my favorite lawyers. And I always tell my lawyers, and I always tell lawyers if I'm sitting across from them and they're representing someone else, the prize you get here is not how many words it takes to say something. The prize you get is charge me extra, but say it with less words, because I don't have the time or the patience anymore after doing what I've been doing for 43 years to read something that's 60 pages that could have been done in 30. And so I never get impressed by how many words a lawyer can put in. On the other hand, we use lawyers in our business for just about everything that we do. We use them for acquisitions, we use them for any type of complicated leasing activity, we use them for all kinds of things. And so, I think anybody, unfortunately, that represents themselves as a lawyer, if a lawyer is necessary, might have a fool for a client.
Let's talk about the community. So Casey and I have had the pleasure of knowing you and Cheryl for a while, and I won't embarrass you, but I know that you do a lot for the community. You give back a lot to the community. You're on the corners. You've got your name on the corners of all of these towns and cities. What's your philosophy when it comes to being a member of the community?
Well, first of all, I've always been a strong believer in giving back to the community, but most importantly, I give back on a local level. I like to go visit, the different organizations that I support. I like to know where the money's going. So I'm, I guess, a little bit unique or a little bit different in that regard.
So the next Michael Pollack is watching this right now. What are your final words of encouragement or advice to this person?
Wow, that's the toughest question you asked me. I think that what people have to be ready for if they're going to truly be successful in any business is unfortunately some long hours. They're going to have to be prepared for a life that includes very hard work if they want to be very successful. And I think that dealing with others with honesty, integrity, and with honor is the most important things that you could possibly do. And to remember, you're not always going to be right, but try to always make your mistakes less than your victories. And my grandfather told me many, many years ago that to stay in business, you have to be at least 51% right. And that equates to so many other things. So I think that when you look at it, that's the most important things, I think, going forward for people. But there's in the horse business, I've been in the horse business as well, but not for a living and not to be actually a business per se. But they always say there's another one warming up in the barn. So as great as that last horse was in that last race, there's another great horse warming up in the barn. And I can guarantee you, there is another Michael Pollack, there's another, everybody else that's out there that's been successful, there's another one warming up in the barn. And what will they do? They'll learn. If I were to look back and I were to think about all the things that I did right, and then I was to think about all the things that I did wrong. And yes, I'm smart enough at least to admit that I've done plenty wrong when it comes to business in my lifetime, not intentionally. And it's hard enough when you are in business to go through and be able to say, we do our best to not intentionally do anything wrong. But when you look back and I can say, the right was far, far, far more plentiful than the wrong. And that makes me feel good. And there's people that are sitting out there and I'm sure they're thinking, okay, I can do everything he did and I can do it better. And you know what? I wish them all the success and all the luck. And sometimes the other thing that I'll share with people, be careful. Don't ever become a deal junkie to the point where you put too much at risk in any one deal. And the reason I say that is, I can remember back, and this is gonna sound bizarre, but the truth is I can remember back that the saying I'm about to say saved me more than once in business. And that is, sometimes the best deal that you ever did is the one that you didn't do, because it wasn't meant to be. And so you're better off sometimes passing on a deal than you are reaching too far for a deal that doesn't make sense.
Very good. Who are your heroes?
My heroes? You.
Stop it.
Well, you know, as far as heroes, I don't know. I think that in looking back, I think that there's so many people that have led by example. And I think a hero to me is somebody that leads by example, that truly gives all they've got, and they do exactly what I keep preaching, and that is have that in honesty, integrity, and just be that type of person. And if you go through life and you know that, just like in sports, you know that you've each time done your best, you've left it all on the field, meaning you literally have no more energy, you have no more anything else to give, you left it on the field. And if you do that, you'll never look back and have regrets. And I think that's what's important. But as far as heroes go, I think it's anybody who has, along the way, whether they ultimately were the biggest success or whether they may not have been, if they've given it their all with integrity and honesty, then they're my hero.
Favorite business book?
Favorite business book? Okay, look, I haven't written it yet.
That's excellent. Favorite movie? You can have 3 answers, because I know you love movies.
Favorite movie? Well, I have so many different movies that I enjoy, and of course, having a movie theater, I have the luxury of being able to watch them whenever I want to see them. So there's so many of them. I guess that if it was going to pick a favorite movie, it would be, I'll give you a theme instead.
Okay.
And to me, my favorite theme in movies is the person, man or woman, who starts the business or a business or life slow, and it doesn't matter where that start is, it's that journey along the way, and they end up successful. And maybe to me, there's a soft spot, and that's why that's my favorite type of movie. It's a movie where somebody truly has to work really hard for what they get, and to me, I think that's what it would be.
So Michael, tell me the vision here. You talked a little bit about how this was an idea that you started having as a child. You said 10 years old, but this takes a vision and execution to go from this to this. And walk us through exactly how that happened.
Well, the interesting thing about this project is the fact that I didn't need to do anything to it. I could have put a coat of paint on it, and I could have just left it alone because it was 100% leased when I started. But when I saw it, it said to me, not that I hear voices, but it said to me, it said, this is the project that is the perfect canvas for you to create this piece that you wanted to do and you've always wanted to do. And so I just saw it and I said, okay. I went to my architect and I said, hey guys, this is what I want. I envision a building that looks like this here, and then another one that looks like this here. And I kept giving them the descriptions of what I wanted. It took me almost 6-8 months to design this little building. Normally I could do 100,000 square foot redesign on a facelift of a building in about a month, and I'd have it ready to go to the city. But this one, I kept retweaking and retweaking and retweaking. And you know what? This is one of those ones, when you hear people talk about renovation, well, here's what it boils down to. There's, for example, when people talk about getting major plastic surgery on their faces, okay, there's what we call Botox, which is a couple of simple injections, and then there's a full facelift. This is the real deal. This project was facelift on top of facelift. This one was, we had to pull the skin back around the head because there was nothing really to work with.
That's quite the visual.
You know, I was talking to a group of doctors and they said, so in essence, you're the plastic surgeon of real estate. And I said, I guess you could say that because I take buildings that truly nobody would even look twice at. And by the time I get done, people will turn their heads in their cars, and you could go to this corner at any given time of people who haven't seen it yet, and you'll watch them drive down the road in their cars, and you'll see them going like this, and they'll be staring at the building. Sometimes I get a little nervous. I'm worried that they're going to be staring too long and not watching the road, but I can't help that. We created a project that was so unique on this one, and we knew that going in. We knew it was going to be unique. And so I just kept going. For the first time in my life, I didn't start out with a budget. And I can promise you, if I had something in the back of my mind, it wasn't there when I finished, because whatever magical, mystical budget I might have dreamt up, which I really didn't have one, but if I did, we far surpassed it. Now, the one thing I will say, I've gotten to the point in life where I was able to do that. And maybe that's the reason that it's taken me 43 years to do this project, is because I was never in a position before where I could literally do a project and not have to really care that the budget didn't matter as much as the end result of the project. Normally when I work on a project, I have a budget that I set for the project, and I will not exceed it. And I've been doing that for the 43 years that I've been in business. I will not exceed that budget. And if I do, it won't be by very much. This one, no, all bets were off when I started, and all bets were off when I finished. And I can guarantee you, had I done every project that I've done, out of that 12 million square feet over the last several years. I wouldn't be in business today if I would have spent that kind of money that I spent on this project. So you talk about overkill. This is the true example of that, but I wanted to prove something. I wanted to prove that you could truly take something that was old and you could make it new again. And you could make it a project that when you look back, it's a project for me that I can be proud of, the neighborhood can be proud of, and the whole city can be proud of. And that's what I wanted. I wanted to be able to look back and say, that's the one that made a difference on that major intersection.
Excellent. I want to thank Michael Pollack for spending the afternoon with us. Thank you very much.
Commissioner, thank you for having me.
You bet.
Appreciate it.
If you're interested in starting a business, go to the Arizona Corporation Commission website at azcc.gov. And best of luck in your entrepreneurial endeavors.